Without a shadow of a doubt, it's the drunkest show in social media history. I want to welcome you to a special edition of the War Zone. My good friend Donovan Sadiq is off fighting the political battles, but I got my partner in crime, Demetri K, in the building. And whenever I need to be talked off the ledge, I call the family. I call my good friend Dr. Abdul Haleem Muhammad, student minister, Southwest. Oh man, I got Dr. Muhammad in there. My mind is, I'm somewhere else today, man. Say, man, I want to welcome y'all to another edition of the War Zone, and thank you for tuning in. I don't think we need to do no news today. We can just kind of jump right into it. A few years back, when I got sick, I met this gentleman, and I actually met him in the hospital. Didn't even know him, but he came to check on me and make sure I was good. And ever since then, whenever I need him, he comes through. Whenever he needs me, I'm always there. And he introduced me to the Nation of Islam. And I will say the nation got some work to do with me. I'm a center and trainer. They got some work to do with me. But my friend has always given me great words of wisdom. When things, for me, you got to talk me off the ledge some days, because I get to reverting back to 1986 real fast. But his teachings that come from the great one, Elijah Muhammad, and from Minister Louis Farrakhan, has saved a lot of people many days with me. And right now I'm in a frustrated state with what I'm seeing in the United States of America, not just Lafayette, Louisiana, with the mistreatment of black people. And I felt that it was time for you guys, and we have a national audience, to hear from somebody that can possibly talk you off the ledge tonight, because I know some of y'all right there. So I want to welcome my guest, and I'll turn it over to Demetri, Dr. Abdul Haleem Muhammad from the Nation of Islam, Southwest Regional Minister. Demetri?
So hello, everybody, and welcome to this special edition of the War Zone on this Saturday evening. I'm in Southern California, where it is currently 120 degrees outside. It's rare. I don't know what's going on, but you know, maybe we'll find out. So anyway, I also like to welcome Dr. Muhammad, and he is going to speak some very much needed wisdom to myself and Gary and everybody watching. And so I'll go ahead and give it to you, Dr. Muhammad. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, Sister Demetri and Brother Jerry. First of all, Assalamu alaikum, which means peace be unto you and all of the viewers. I'm very honored, as always, to be on your program, and for you to have a special edition and call upon me lets me know that Brother Jerry's in a special place, that I need to reach back in there and get him out of it so that he can continue to do the good that he's doing. Yes, he's a work in progress, but we all are a work in progress if we will humble ourselves and understand that we've all fallen short of the glory of God, and all of our righteousness is like filthy rags in the nostril of God. And until God puts a period in Brother Jerry's life, Demetri's life, my life, all of our lives, we all have an opportunity to redeem ourselves from any past condition or present condition. That being said, I want to first and foremost, because I am the student minister of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, placed over the Southwest region in 1994, to send my condolences out to the brothers and sisters in the city of Lafayette and Brother Trey Pellerin's family. I want to send my love and condolences out, and know that we stand with the family, that if any time they need us or want us to come in, we will do so. But the most honorable Elijah Muhammad always taught us, don't go to a place that you're not welcome, you're not invited. So oftentimes we find with these families, Brother Jerry and I were speaking off camera, we find with these families, sometimes they don't want certain people to come in because it might mess up what they eventually may acquire in terms of a settlement, a non-disclosure agreement, appearances on CNN and MSNBC and et cetera and so forth. I'm not saying that this is the case with the family. I'm just saying after 33 years of activism, I already know how it goes. Sometimes they want a pit bulldog in there. Sometimes they want someone who's going to go after the enemy. And then what will happen is that then they will cut a deal behind the person's back. What I don't want for Brother Jerry is to be in a position where we're passing around the hat when the evil action of time comes to he or me, and that people say good things about him after he's gone. They'll name an alley or a park or a school after him after he's gone. But they're afraid to associate themselves with him while he's living. They're afraid that because the enemy doesn't like him, doesn't like his ways, doesn't like his mannerisms, that they will shun him. Or sometimes they'll call on him and pretend to be with him. And then the next moment, when they get that phone call from whomever, then all of a sudden they won't return his phone calls, nor will he be getting phone calls. So I want to put him in a place that he understands that the thin line between love and hate is betrayal. And I don't ever want him to feel betrayed, because when he feels betrayed, he reacts in a certain kind of way. Because he's the kind of guy, he don't give you 50%, he don't give you 75%. He gonna give you 150%. And if he puts his heart and soul into something, and then you turn around and stab him in the back, he goes off into space. So that's why he talks about me pulling him down off the ledge, because I try to help him understand that he can't fight every battle like it's the last battle. Because these people, again, you see behind me the book by William Clay, that kind of should set our political narrative. And I'm a spiritual man, but I'm also a man who is a political scientist. And I study governments and systems of governance. And Bill Clay wrote a book called Just Permanent Interests. And it's kind of the motto of the Congressional Black Caucus, or at least it used to be: no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, just permanent interests. And we should all understand and recognize the fact that 100 years ago, we were all Republicans. I mean, and I'm not being sacrilegious when I tell you, Sister Demetria, that if Jesus Christ ran as a Democrat 100 years ago, we wouldn't have voted for him. That's just how committed we were to the Republican Party, because Abraham Lincoln freed us. Okay, we only became Democrats when Franklin Delano Roosevelt began to hand out some government benefits, as the Democrats then came to power under his administration. And unfortunately, we right now are in the Twilight Zone, because it is clear, and I'm going to talk from a 10,000 point view, and then I'm going to bring it right down to Lafayette. It is pretty clear at this particular point in time that we are at the Jordan River. And we got to make a decision whether we're going to pick a leader to go back to Egypt, or we're going to roll up our pants legs, cross that Jordan River, and take on those giants in the promised land, so we can have some of this earth we can call our own. We're getting to that point. And what you have in Trey's killing, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, now Daniel Prude there in New York, in Rochester, New York, the brother they put the spit thing in, this comes out months later. Jacob Blake, Sandra Bland here in Waller County, Dijon Kazee in Los Angeles, the sheriff's deputy killed him out in Los Angeles. Mike Brown, of course, in Ferguson. Houston, we had Nicholas Chavez shot. He was on his knees. He got shot to pieces by the Houston Police Department. Of course, we know the famous Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, the 12-year-old playing with a toy gun. John Crawford III in an open carry state was with a BB gun in a Walmart. and Ahmaud Arbery, who was killed, mob violence there in Georgia, and it's going to continue, brothers and sisters. You have to understand what you're dealing with. And you may not like what I'm going to say from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but you will never accuse the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan of being too cowardly to tell you the truth. And as a witness bearer, having walked with this man, having known him since 1976, since I was 19 years old, the character of this man and why I walk with him today. He told me one time, sister, and this is the only time I try to focus on say something about myself. He said to me, brother, you could have been anything you wanted to be. He said, but you walk with me. You know the price I have to pay to walk with Mr. Farrakhan? I'm a PhD. I'm like everything else. It should be everything laid at my feet. Brother Jerry goes off on the city officials because he already knows I've laid out a plan for them to end street violence. We have done this. We've done the work in the schools. We know what to do. But they can find millions of dollars for police overtime. They can find millions of dollars to give to people who really cherry pick. They're boys that don't have fathers and need mentors and all that. But you can go in them schools and find them, and just with a little bit of this, that, and the other, they're going to be all right. But what we're talking about is the hardcore killers. The ones that they don't care nothing about school. You know, they've been hurt as children. They've seen nothing but violence. They've seen men come in and out of their mama's house. I mean, these boys don't care nothing about nobody. But if we walk in them streets, they know that we love them, and they will listen to them. And right now in Lafayette, Bert Gary is the one that I'm telling you right now, he got his finger on that. He got his finger in the dike right now that's about to leak. Because them boys in the street, they don't care nothing about death because they don't believe they're going to live past 25 anyway. I'm not talking to OGs. I'm talking about these young warriors that's on the street. But my job as a representative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is to remind them of what he reminded them of the plot and plan of the enemy. So, sister, you know, I want to make sure that we understand the mindset of what we're dealing with. Now, discernment, Sister Demetria and Brother Gary and those who are listening, is the ability to know the difference between that which is the same, that which is opposite, and that which is similar. You could be pejorative and say all white people are this, all black people are that, and that is an implicit bias that is rooted in stereotypes. However, there's explicit bias that we all should have based upon history and experience in our present circumstances. So look, when you have these people that come on here, and in one sense they're saying to you, well, we want peace, we want peaceful, coexistence, but you people ain't gonna be violent with us. We're not gonna have it. It's like saying, you Negro, get back in your place. We runs this. And in truth, brothers and sisters, you got to recognize the fact that they are not going to give up power without a demand, as Frederick Douglass says. But they're not going to give up, Sister Demetria, power without a demand, backed by power. And the number one denial objective of our enemy, since bringing us over here in the holds of slave ships, was that we would never be organized. Because if we organize, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's words are that our unity is more powerful than an atomic bomb. So how do we achieve this unity? See, it's called operational unity. What we don't seem to understand is that everybody can build coalitions but us. Listen to me well. You and I right now are filling out the United States Census form. Show me the box in the census form that says Polish American, French American, Scandinavian American, English American, Italian American. Now, all of these immigrant groups are Jewish American. All these immigrant groups came here through Ellis Island and there in San Francisco, these other ports of entry. How did they all become white? See, there's a difference between a race and ethnic groups. Within the race, there are ethnic groups. They used to fight against each other, the Polish, the Italians, the Sicilians, the French, the Spanish, the Portuguese, the Italians, those who are Danish, those who are from Holland, those are from Germany, Austria, Switzerland, all of these places, Romania, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Poland. But you know what? They put all that aside to make sure that they can keep a global system of white supremacy in place. Now, we got to change our mind and our mindset and understand exactly what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a minority, not a majority. Caucasian people are a minority on this planet. We darker people outnumber them 11-1, and they know it. And in the city of Houston, which is the most diverse city in America, is the canary in the coal mine, Sister Demetria, because it foretells what Texas will be by 2040 and what America will be by 2040. A majority, quote unquote, minority city, state, and country. They see the browning of America, they know it, and they're going to do everything possible to stop it. Now, no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, just permanent interests. What are our permanent interests, brothers and sisters? Can you name me 5 things that we all agree upon that are like lines in the sand that are non-negotiables? I could take you to the Jewish community. I could take you to the pharmacy industry. I could take you to the broadcast industry, the insurance industry, the oil and gas industry. And they are things that are lines in the sand that if anybody wants to pass legislation that is detrimental to those permanent interests, they will put their money and their organization against you. But we react to everything just like, you know, it's like we're pulled from here to there, and we don't know how to reward our friends and punish our enemies. And we always seem like we're reacting instead of having them react to us. And so we always have to explain or make accommodations, Brother Jerry, for white fear versus our black pain. It's hell being black in America. We've been catching it since we got here. And I'm not going to stereotype the Southerner, that it was only the Southerner. Hell, it was the, let me show you something. It was the North too. Here's a book called Complicity. How the North promoted, prolonged, and profited from slavery. Did you know that Rhode Island was the hub of the transatlantic slave trade? How so, Muhammad? Do you know that most of the distilleries in America that made rum were in Rhode Island and in New England? Well, how'd you make rum? You made rum from sugar and molasses that came from where? The Caribbean. And how was that sugar and molasses grown or harvested? From the slaves that they got from Africa. Do you know the slaving voyages that came from Rhode Island? Do you know that Brown University was named after some slavers. They made their fortune. The Brown family made their fortune from slavery. This is the North. And when the South started picking cotton, do you know where the needle industries were that manufactured cotton was sent from? Do you know the bankers and the insurance people were in the North that financed the slavery in the South? So let's understand what it is that we're dealing with. Do you know that when Thomas Jefferson, here's another one called American Scripture. I've got my receipts. I'm not just talking loud. I can prove what I got to say. Documentation be conversation. American Scripture, the making of the Declaration of Independence. Do you know that in the initial draft, this is what Thomas Jefferson wrote, but they scratched it out to what you know is it? Look, they were charging King George with all of these things that were against the liberty of the 13 colonies. Look at what he wrote, and it was scratched out. He is redacted, it's scratched out. Listen to these words. He has waged cruel war against human nature itself, violating its most sacred right of life and liberty in the persons of a distant people who never offended him, captivating and carrying them into slavery in another hemisphere, or to incur miserable death in their transportation thither. This piratical warfare, the opprobrium of infidel powers, is the warfare of the Christian king of the Great Britain, determined to keep open a market where men should be bought and sold. He has prostituted his negative for suppressing every legislative attempt to prohibit or to restrain this execrable commerce, and that this assemblage of horrors might want to no fact of distinguished die. He now is exciting those very people to rise in arms among us and to purchase that liberty of which he has deprived them by murdering the people upon whom he has obtruded them, thus paying off former crimes committed against the liberties of one people with the crimes which he urges them to commit against the lives of another. Now, that was in the original draft of the Declaration of Independence, but it was taken out. Why? To compromise for those slave states, not only in the South, but in the North. So, what are we dealing with here? Do you know that Texas was a colony founded to eventually become their own republic, to be a slave republic, an empire, slave empire? Did you know the Austin brothers cut deals with John Lafitte? And they brought slaves from Louisiana? That's how they smuggled them into Texas? Because the Mexican government didn't want slavery in Tejas, that part of Mexico called Tejas, which that's what Texas was a colony. So you know the connection between Louisiana, the port of New Orleans, the port of Galveston, the border between Louisiana and Texas, an empire of their own. And when they became a republic, they put slavery in their constitution. And when they joined the Union as a slave state. And when they rebelled against the Union, they went with the Confederacy. And do you know that there never was a federal army that ever invaded Texas? That Granger came, he sailed from New Orleans, General Granger. He landed in Galveston. He read the Emancipation Proclamation. And that's why we celebrate Juneteenth, because these people kept us enslaved for extra 2.5 years in Texas. Then after they so-called emancipated us, they passed the 13th Amendment with this clause, except if you're duly convicted of a crime, you can be enslaved or put in involuntary servitude. So they have what was called convict labor system. So it's what Douglas Blackman and David Orzechowski talked about slavery by another name. So this police industrial complex that has been created is all a part of a system of keeping so-called freedmen in check. Current book by Isabel Wilkerson, Caste, The Origins of Our Discontent. We got a caste system, and it's based upon race. Make no mistake about it. We have a caste system, and it's always been determined. I don't care if you got a ounce of intelligence in your head. Look how they treated Barack Obama. He was the president of the United States, man. Look how they treated him. He ain't never did nothing for me. Oh, yeah? Just like the fantasy character Black Panther never did anything for you either. But you know what? It did something for our babies. This is why they're going to have to come and kill all of us. You want to know why? See, he may not pass any meaningful legislation except for the American Care Act, the Affordable Care Act, right? He ain't did nothing for us. But do you know the image that was in our baby, that's ingrained in our babies' heads? That when they saw this man walk into a room and the press is cynical and low down as the media is, they ain't our friend neither. You'd have the press to have to stand up when this black man walked in the room. Don't you think our children saw that? Don't you think our children saw that these generals with 4 stars on their shoulders, all these battle ribbons and medals, that when he walked in the room, they had to stand up and salute him? Don't you think our babies saw that? Don't you think our babies saw him step off of Air Force One in foreign soil, and there would be an honor guard there to greet him of that country's greatest and best soldiers standing, and he was there? Don't you know that they saw him give the 21-gun salute, or when he walked out on the grounds, they heard "Hail to the Chief"? That is ingrained in our baby's head. Now, you talk about the passing of our brother, oh my God, that just passed away, played Black Panther, Boseman, Chadwick Boseman. Oh, Black Panther, it was this, that, and the other. It was fantasy, it was this, that, and the other. Be quiet. Don't you know that our babies now believe that they too can be superheroes? Huh? Come on, y'all. You don't understand. You don't understand because most of us, I won't just put it on you, don't realize that Pharaoh's done let us go. So why don't we let Pharaoh go? He don't want us anymore. And he's showing you right now. Mr. Trump is just the current occupant of an institution that does not intend to ever allow you or your coalition of young people or Hispanics or women or poor people ever again somebody in charge that they don't approve. So you looked at voter suppression. Voter suppression is not just in the South. It's all over the country. What's wrong with voter ID? Ain't nothing wrong with it. But why did you cut back on early voting? Why did you cut back on roll to the polls? Why did you stop people from being voter registrars? Why did you make it hard for college students to vote? See, why are you monkeying around with the post office, which is an institution that existed before the daggone Constitution was come? Do you know Ben Franklin was the first Postmaster General? If we don't open up our eyes and understand, brother Gary, I had to laugh. He said to me, man, he said, Minister, they trying to start a race war. No, brother, we already been in one. We've been in a race war since they came and snatched us off the continent of Africa. This has been an ongoing battle that we've had for our humanity for at least 500 years. I won't even go back thousands of years on you. Let's just deal with our so-called North American or Western Hemisphere context. So what we have is, after the 1968 riots, 67 riots, 65 Watts Rebellion, they came out with a Kerner Commission report. And it determined that if we didn't make certain changes, make certain investments, then America would continue to be, America was at that time 2 nations, separate and unequal. And you know what? We still are. It's even worse now. The wealth gap is worse. The educational gap is worse. The healthcare gap is worse. And we're still getting shot down in the street. Now, I'll go back to the caste system by Isabel Wilkerson. Michelle Alexander, the new Jim Crow. There you go. That's right, Sister Demetria. But go back, Sister Demetria, with your highlight pen and read that last chapter called The Fire This Time. To understand the Jerry Monroes of the world, you have to read that last chapter called The Fire This Time. Michelle Alexander points out how Dr. King had left. The reason why I'm so disgusted with the NAACP and the Urban League and all of them is because they keep invoking the name of Dr. King, but Dr. King had left the position that they took long ago. In fact, that's why he was murdered. See, he went from trying to reform this system to advocating a real revolution. And had he been successful in uniting a poor people's campaign, which would included poor white people, I really feel bad for that cat that came on your show the other day, the white man. He don't even know that Donald Trump is his pimp. And that they're being pimped by their whiteness. And they don't care what I say, no matter how many PhDs I have, what my title is, what I lead, who I am, that I don't have a criminal record, that I'm the father of 4 sons, that I've been married to the same woman for over 30-something years. I'm not perfect. I'm not saying that. They won't care nothing about that. They'll say, Muhammad, I don't care if you got PhDs, how much money you got. You can be as rich as Oprah Winfrey. But you know what? One thing I can say is, you're still in it. At least I'm wide. You let yourself get played. Donald Trump didn't cut taxes for you. He cut taxes for his billionaire friend. He just makes you feel good. Make America white again. That's what being great, make America great again. Make America white again. He got you pride in all the symbols, but not the substance that's behind the symbol. E pluribus unum, out of the many one, never included us, Sister Demetria, Brother Jerry, and the listening audience. It never included us. It was the 6 European governments, Minister Farrakhan teaches us. Holland, France, England, Ireland, Scotland, Germany. Those were the 6 European nations that e pluribus unum. So it didn't have the slave in mind or the freedmen. There were free black people. It didn't have women in mind. It didn't have Arabs in mind. It didn't have Hispanics in mind. It didn't have Native Americans in mind. It didn't even have poor white people that didn't own property in mind. It was years before white people without owning property could vote, white males. And somehow, some way, I don't know what's wrong with us. Sister Demetria, you know, how sisters get involved in these feminist movements, which the Sojourner Truths and the Mary McLeod Bethune fought for the franchise for women, and yet the white women did not look out for black women to have the vote. I don't know how y'all forget that. I don't know how you forget that 53% of white women voted for Trump. I don't know how y'all forget that. We all together. I was on Roland Martin's show on News One the day after Trump's inauguration. And if you can go back and find that tape somewhere, I think it's on my YouTube channel. Those sisters were on there talking about, their great march, and they had a great march now. It was actually, globally, it was bigger than the Million Man March. But I told them sisters, I said, yeah, that's good y'all came together, but guess what? Y'all all going back to different realities. I said, make sure you hold their feet to real equality. And then, sure enough, years later, look how they turned on Tamika Mallory. Look how they turned on Linda Sarsour. Look how they turned on Carmen Perez. Look how they turned on them women, calling them anti-Semites and fans of Louis Farrakhan and this, that, and the other. And look how these white women dissed them black sisters and pushed them out of the movement that they helped organize. When you gonna wake up, y'all? As long, Mr. Farrakhan teaches us, as long as we live with them, we're gonna live under them. And if we don't determine our permanent interests and sit down with them and say, these are our permanent interests, these are non-negotiables. If we're going to coalesce together, it's going to be on this basis. If not, then we wish you the best and you can keep on keeping on. Let's go back to this Michelle Alexander piece, though, Demetrius, since you pulled out the book. So, on page 246 and 247, in the second paragraph, here she's quoting a meeting that Dr. King had with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. I'm quoting Michelle Alexander's writing. A human rights movement, King believed, held revolutionary potential. Speaking at a Southern Christian Leadership Conference staff retreat in May 1967, he told SCLC staff, who were concerned that the civil rights movement had lost its steam and its direction, quote, "It is necessary for us to realize that we have moved from the era of civil rights to the era of human rights," close quote. Political reform efforts were no longer adequate to the task at hand, he said. For the last 12 years, quoting Dr. King again, we have been in a reform movement. But after Selma, the Voting Rights Act, we've moved into a new era, which must be an era of revolution. We must see the great distinction between a reform movement and a revolutionary movement. We are called upon to raise certain basic questions about the whole society. Then that's close quote. Then Dr. Alexander writes, more than 40 years later, civil rights advocacy is stuck in a model of advocacy King was determined to leave behind. So you have to understand the Gary Monroe's from that standpoint. This old paradigm of accommodation, assimilation, and integration is something that these folk are still operating on when there's a whole nother generation that's come up. So let's go to the next page, Sister Dimitri. On the next page, he writes here, she writes here, I'm gonna go down to this third paragraph. If Martin Luther King is right that the arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice, a new movement will arise. And if civil rights organizations fail to keep up with the times, they will be pushed to the side as another generation of advocates comes to the fore. Hopefully, the new generation will be led by those who know best the brutality of the new caste system. A group with greater vision, courage, and determination than the old guard muster, trapped as they may be in an outdated paradigm. This new generation of activists should not disrespect their elders or disparage their contributions or achievements. To the contrary, they should bow their heads in respect, for their forerunners have expended untold hours and made great sacrifices in an elusive an elusive quest for justice. But once respects have been paid, they should march right past them, emboldened, as King once said, by the fierce urgency of now. See? So this is what I always counsel Jerry. I'm always counseling him, brother, wait, don't go, no, don't disrespect them. They are what they are. They can't help themselves. That's just who they are. Show them respect and get on about your business. You see?
Now you must admit, it's been about 7 years I've been knowing you, and I'm a little bit better than I was 7 years ago. 7 years ago, I had no patience, no nothing, and I was a live wire, just a ticking time bomb. But now I figured out some things, and as I listen to you read, I understand as I travel across the country that there is a new breed of activists. And some of us do our ministry in the streets that we help tear up. That's why it's so easy for us to relate to the natives when I touch down in Minneapolis and have never been there. When I come to Louisiana and hadn't been here for 20 years. It's easy for me to have a conversation with the natives because there's nothing that's changed very much since I was here 20 years ago. I learned from you that some days, and I don't know, this man tells me so much, y'all, that I'm just a messenger. And it's a lot of messages I've tried to deliver, and we sit back, we laugh about it some days. I've tried to deliver the messages. United States of America, whether it be Lafayette, LA, where another brother got killed the other day. If you keep playing stupid games, you're going to get some stupid prizes. It's only so long a real OG can shut these youngsters down. And contrary to popular opinion, you outmanned and you outgunned. I don't want to see nobody get hurt. But for those that think this is a game, trust me, if this man's sitting there on this show, we didn't already talk before we came on. And he didn't reach me, I reached out to him. Because at the end of the day, I'm a real old school gangster. And I don't play certain games. So that's why I tell people, man, watch yourself, man, before your mouth write a check your behind can't cash. And then, I'll call a good doctor and you can't do it like that. You can't do it like that. But what I'm saying is there is a new breed of activists. Like people talk so bad about Grandmaster Jay. But let me ask you a question. How many of y'all can get 10 Negroes to show up anywhere and somebody don't get killed or shot? If you can get that many people to show up, you have power that people are afraid of. They are afraid of it. And for me, and I think the good doctor will tell all of y'all, we've done protests together. I've done them separately, whether it's in the community, city hall, at the school, and never once have one of them become violent. Never. But I don't have another cheek to turn. I am not going to be violent with those that are not violent with me. If you put your hands on me, I'm going to mop the floor with you. I can promise you that. And I'm not going to stand by and let you do anything to my people. I didn't mean to cut you off, Doc. I had to get that out.
Brother. I wanted people to understand that, in fact, and indeed, you have changed. And that's why until someone puts a period in our lives, or God puts the period in our lives, we should be very careful not to judge people. The minister gave me the name Abdul Haleem. Haleem is an attribute of God that means forbearing. It is the characteristic or the attribute of God where he doesn't punish you right away for offending his law. He's forbearing. So the way I am is that I'm slow to criticize and even slower to judge. And that's why I don't believe in throwing nobody away, because I don't believe that anybody's irredeemable, including the white people that want to change. If you want real change, you have to renounce Satan and all his works. Why I'm giving you this history of your country is because if you do not renounce the mind, the lack of vision of the founding fathers, see, they didn't love you enough to give you the mindset that e pluribus unum means something different in the 21st century than it did in the 18th century. And that this country, 300 million plus, in a 2,000 by 3,000 square mile continental country, including, and then that doesn't include Alaska and Hawaii and all of the US territories, are peopled with folk that look like us. So the question is now, how do you think you're going to control us? You got to do one or two things. You're either going to have to sit down at the table with us and give us, not give us, you can't give us. It's not in your nature to give it to us. Understand what our concept of freedom, justice, and equality is: full and complete freedom, equal justice under the law applied, a law of justice applied equally regardless of creed, class, or color. Equality of opportunity, not equality of outcomes, but equality of opportunity. We want membership in society with the best of civilized society. Absent that, then the fourth want of the Muslims kick in, which is we want a separate state or territory of our own. Now that may scare some of you all, but the bottom line is, I do not want to close my eyes and redound to my grandchildren the same struggle that I inherited when I was born in 1956. And what Brother Gary is trying to make you understand is that in the Mississippi Freedom Movement and the Deacons of Defense that were with Dr. King, they will shoot back. And let me explain something to you. The Nation of Islam does not carry so much as a penknife. But we are taught to defend ourselves because this is the life that we've been given by God. And anybody that won't defend the life that they've been given isn't worth the life that God gave them. But here the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says these words: we must unite at all costs. He gave a speech in 1959 at the Uline Arena in Washington, D.C. And he said in this speech, it's in the book called Fall of America, we must unite at all costs, he said. Once united, we must stand fully packed as a wall against injustice. If your brother does not want to unite with you, then you must teach him, cajole him, urge him, and persuade him by all methods available until he realizes that he too must give his all on the altar of justice. Listen to Honorable Elijah Muhammad's words. At that time, there was about 17 million of us. Listen to his words. For what if 10 million of us die in the process? The remaining 7 million or more of us will enjoy freedom, justice, and equality. We got a generation born like that. And what Caucasians need to understand is that with all your nuclear bombs, all of that, with all your great Air Force and your Navy and now your Space Force, when Hurricane Harvey came through here, no planes could take off or land. That searing heat that's in California right now is affecting the very infrastructure. That kind of heat will make railroad tracks bend just so much slightly that trains will derail. Asphalt will crack. The fires that are raging on California on one end, and then the rain that's on the other side of America. You don't know the God that backs us. The problem with the black people that's on this line right now is they don't know that God loved them so much, he will destroy America to free them. Do you know, Brother Jerry, that during the Civil War, there were no major slave rebellions, even though the slaves knew that the Union was fighting against slavery? And if there was, the slaves hated slavery. This is known. But they were afraid. They wanted their masters not to be harmed. That's some crazy, that's some cognitive dissonance if I ever heard it. Brother and sister, who are you praying to? I want you to ask. That man that came up from the Cajun militia that came on, when he gets down on his knees and prays to God, is he praying to the same God you praying to? And is he praying for the same thing? If he says, God bless America, and you say, God bless America, do you all have the same concept in mind? What's his concept of American blessing? White hegemony over all the darker peoples? And what's your concept? The Rodney King concept, can we all just get along? When the slave and the slave master pray, in the name of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, were they praying for the same thing? What was the slave praying for in his slave quarters? I want to be free. What were the Negro spirituals about? Mama, is Master going to sell us today? What kind of song is that? Shout all over God's heaven. Heaven. Everybody talk about heaven ain't going there. What were we singing about? Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. You don't know nothing about the damn Jordan River. You talking about sweet Harriet Tubman. And don't you know the Underground Railroad? Why are you fighting with the Mexicans? Don't you know the Underground Railroad went south too? Into Mexico? They got bit by the same dog we got bit by. They just don't realize it. We got colorization right there in Louisiana. Somebody's black as Jerry ain't looked upon by them that's mulatto and quadroon and all of that. They think they better because they got white blood in them. Talk back to me, Creole. Come on. I've been over the Southwest region for almost 2 decades now, or a decade at least. I know you. I know us. We're messed up as they are. So here's where I want to go. Brother and sister, if you're going to give your life, nothing of worthwhile is ever accomplished without the shedding of blood. Sister Demetria, as a woman, knows that when you give birth to a child, in that 8th month, the feet are where the head should be. But in that 8th month, 8, which is, if you turn it on the side, it's the symbol of infinity. In the 8th month, there's a turn that takes place. And where the feet were, the head, now that baby turns, and the head now, and the head begins to forge the way to freedom. There's a show of blood. Jesus called it the beginning of sorrows, which in some translations of the Bible, it's called the birth pangs of a new age. There's nothing worthwhile comes into existence without persecution, Brother Jerry, without being evil spoken of, without being vilified. But I promise you, brother, I promise you, sister, history will absolve you. History will absolve us. So this is what I want you to understand. We're not socialists or Marxists, especially in a Karl Marx kind of socialism. We don't even believe in that kind of socialism because you know what? In all of Marx's writings, he never condemned capitalism. The capital and capitalism that he was condemning, he never told the people that the capital was accumulated from 500 years of free labor. And as an environmentalist, he believed in unlimited production just like the capitalists did. So they're going to tear up the environment. All you people there on the I-10 corridor, right there in that golden triangle between Jefferson County and all along the Louisiana border, all them chemical plants, you sitting there right there in Cancer Row because of environmental racism. They don't care nothing about the air quality, the water that you drink. You don't even understand that all the cancer that your people are suffering from comes from them chemical plants. Dumping in Dixie, all the dump sites, the chemical dump sites is by our neighborhoods. The concrete crushing plants are by our neighborhoods. The dumps are by our neighborhoods. Poor people, but black people in particular. So read Robert Bullock's book, Dumping in Dixie. I mean, I look, I got receipts. So look, those of you in law enforcement who are watching this right now, don't say that Muhammad said there's some veiled threat of revolution or I'm calling for violence and all that. We're not doing that. We don't want our people hurt. Mr. Farrakhan did all that he could in the 90s, touring the cities, stop the killing rallies. Why? Because he had a vision in 1985 where he was taken to what the Nation of Islam teaches is the Great Mother Plain. And he spoke to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, someone in which the world has said had been dead since 1975. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad told him that the Joint Chief of Staff, the president met with the Joint Chief of Staff, that Ronald Reagan was the president at that time, and he's planned a war. He said, I want you to go and hold a press conference, tell them reveal these plans, and tell them you got it from me, Elijah Muhammad, on the wheel. Mr. Farrakhan realized that it was a two-front war. It was a war against a Muslim country overseas, which he came to know to be Libya. And it was a war against the Muslim Nation of Islam, but black people in general in this country. So as long as we continue to slaughter each other in the streets and black lives don't matter to us, black lives ain't never matter to them. But when our lives become so sacred that when you start sending our children to the graveyard, we start sending yours to the graveyard, then we're going to sit at the table and start negotiating. I'll say it again. We outnumber you 11-1 on this planet. And everything that you need to have your cell phones to work is found where our kith and kin were kidnapped from. All of your modern technology, I don't care what Steve Jobs and them came up with, what Mark Zuckerberg and all them, if you don't get those rare earth minerals out of Africa, you don't have a modern technological society. But we're going to go take it. All right. You're going to meet them Chinese there because they're already there. And black folk about to kick them out. This thing is getting ready to unravel. We're watching the unraveling of America. A great nation is unraveling right in front of our eyes. And brothers and sisters, only a fool fights in a burning house. Why are we fighting each other? This house is on fire. Don't you know that in a fire, the first thing that you die from is not the fire itself, it's the smoke. The smoke is odorless, colorless, and tasteless, but it incapacitates you. Then your behind burns up. But that fire takes that which is usable, like my furniture, my books, and it turns it into a toxic soup that will put you to sleep. So right now, the smoke, you don't want that smoke. You know what they say, but don't mess with Brother Jerry Monroe because you don't want that smoke. because smoke will incapacitate you. Smoke is what puts you to sleep before the fire burns you up. You don't want the smoke. Our people, because of social media, didn't you see after the killing of George Floyd? Didn't you see America, people protest not only in America, but across the globe? So what if 10 million, 20 million black people decide to give their life for the other 20 million to be free? Do you think the whole world won't see that? And do you think that all these little vacation places that you got, the Carnival cruise places you go, that black people, all of darker people all over the world will then not welcome you anymore? You won't be able to walk safely anywhere on this planet because of we're all connected by this medium now. That's why I thank God, as Minister Farrakhan teaches us, for Steve Jobs, for all of those who that, because right now we're talking to the whole world. And there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing. So let me say this. Our oppression is bipartisan. We went from a war on poverty to a war on crime. That after the passing of the Economic Opportunity Act by Lyndon Johnson, he passed some criminal reform acts that began the mass incarceration. They like to blame it on Nixon, but all Nixon did was drop the anti-poverty stuff that Lyndon Johnson started, and he enhanced and increased the criminal justice things that Lyndon Johnson did. Well, what are you saying, Muhammad? I'm telling you that, remember 1965, the Watch riot took place on Lyndon Johnson's watch. The rebellions after Dr. King was assassinated, 120 plus cities went up in smoke. That was on Lyndon Johnson's watch. And that's why Richard Nixon ran on law and order. And that's what Donald Trump is doing right now. History repeating itself, but you and I are too blind to see that these are the birth pangs, brothers and sisters. We're going to have to make a determination. We cannot go through another 50 years of a black caste system where there is a few black people at the top that made it, and the rest of us is still eating crumbs. It ain't going to work. It's not going to work. So know that there are cops who are telling the story. This book is called Breaking Ranks by Norm Stamper, a top cop's expose of the dark side of American policing. Pretty thick book, too. He's telling the whole story here of how dirty some of this policing is, this culture, this blue culture. Here's another book called The End of Policing. And how it reads is, the problem is not police training. So don't fall for that one, Bajir. Police diversity. Because once they get in that blue code, I don't give a damn. Black cops be as brutal sometimes as the white cops. Or police methods. The problem is the dramatic and unprecedented expansion and intensity of policing in the last 40 years. A fundamental shift in the role of police in society. The problem is policing itself. And why? Because since 9/11, the rise of the warrior cop, the rise of the warrior cop, brothers and sisters, the militarization of America's police force, 9/11 changed everything. And you have them with military equipment now. Because after 9/11, the federal government consolidated all of its law enforcement, its intelligence and law enforcement, and put FEMA up under this thing called Homeland Security. And as we speak, in Lafayette or in that parish, there is a Homeland Security designee. There is an emergency management manager designee in that parish or in that city of Lafayette. Because the federal government pushed grants down to establish these task forces of law enforcement. So everything that we say over this internet, everything that we text, everything that we call, every email we send, have you ever noticed that if a policeman or somebody gets shot, that they'll go in and find this suspect's social media account? They'll have all his texts, his emails. They'll see whether he liked, if it was a black guy shooting some white cops, they're going to see if he liked the new Black Panthers page, if he liked Louis Farrakhan, if he, they're always looking for this connection. Why did this person go off? They went off because of injustice. That's why the people are tired. So I have an opportunity and a job to warn you that God is angry. God is angry. And he is not going to relent. If you think about what just happened, yeah, 2 storms entered the Gulf of Mexico. Marco and Laura. Marco fizzled out. But Laura came in as a 3 or 4, Cat 3, Cat 4. And not only, I mean, you know, Katrina really passed by New Orleans. It did hit Alabama, I think Mississippi, that part of the Gulf Coast, but it actually missed New Orleans. But you know what? Laura didn't. Laura went so far up in there that in Alexandria, Shreveport, Monroe, they had damage. They had power outages. It cut a swath 30 miles wide, like a tornado that was 30 miles wide through the state of Louisiana. But what was the difference? But for purposes of our discussion tonight, brothers and sisters, what was the difference between Marco and Laura? In other words, I'm asking you, beloved, what is the difference between a tropical depression, which is a rainstorm, and a Cat 5 hurricane? Its level of organization. Brothers and sisters, get organized, and you and I will get free. Operational unity is unity without uniformity. It means go worship where you worship. It means belong to whatever group you belong to. But can we have some permanent interests that we can define, that are worthy goals for us to attain, not for ourselves, but for our children and grandchildren? Isn't there something better in Lafayette where it hasn't changed? Brother Jerry said it hadn't changed in 20 years, and in truth, it really hasn't. And you'll always continue to suffer like this until you decide that you really want to be free. And then those who are in the streets, I have to differ with you, Brother Jerry. I know we got guns too, and we will shoot back. But this beast is prepared to slaughter us to maintain power. See, it's even gotten to the point where it really ain't even about color or class or creed. This is about power. Who possesses it and how they use it. How else do you explain the Republican Party? The Republican Party of Ronald Reagan. Even if they was racist, as Dimitri being out of California, you knew Reagan was a racist by the way he handled the Panther. Some of the first California gun control laws came when Panthers rolled up in the assembly with long guns, which according to the Second Amendment rights. They said, oh, you can't do that no more. Because black people had guns and military training. So I want to ask you, brothers and sisters, what happened to the Republican Party? Just sit back for a minute. What happened to these people that when Barack Obama was in office, they wanted to hold down the deficit and the debt? But Donald Trump came up and ran it up higher than Barack Obama ever had. Where are the deficit hawks? Where the libertarian wing of the Republican Party? They didn't want government involved in all of our affairs. Where are they? What happened to them? What happened to the checks and balances that the founding fathers set up? Where the legislature was supposed to be a check on the executive, and the judiciary was supposed to be a check on both of them. What happened? This country is unraveling, as Mr. Farrakhan pointed out to us. It's unraveling right in front of us. And brothers and sisters, as it unravels, don't you know that when elephants fight, the grass gets trampled? Now, what happens in November should the candidate that you all seem to prefer doesn't win? What then? What you gonna do? What's your permanent interest? Define them for me. What's our action plan? Or are you gonna let the same old Negroes who Dr. King, that paradigm that Dr. King broke away from, continue to rule? Minister Farrakhan teaches us that politics without economics is symbol without substance. Yes, we want police reform, but you have to reform America, not just the police. Now, to the police, the law enforcement who watch these things and are studying me and what I'm saying, and the Gary Monroes, and listen to his phone calls and read his emails and his texts and all of that and his social media posts, let me say this to you. You are being used, and maybe you want to be a useful idiot. I don't know. But you're being used because why in your police department do you have to have a homeless squad? Because the legislature in your state and your city doesn't build affordable housing. They won't take care of the veterans. Why do you have to have a mental health squad? Because your legislature and your city council will not properly fund mental health care. Why are there so many brothers getting locked up in the drug game? And now they're into human trafficking now. That drugs may not be the thing now. You don't want to do that now because, you know, they got mandatory minimums and all that stuff. Why are you now getting into the pimping and human trafficking game now, brother? Because they deindustrialized the country. See? They shipped your jobs overseas. So when Trump sounds that alarm, I can't disagree with him. He's telling the truth. A brother used to be able to just graduate from Yates, Gary, or just get he might have dropped out in 11th grade, man, because he just couldn't hack going to school there. But he get his GED, he could work a used tool, he get his WIC card. Well, not the WIC card, the TWIC card, excuse me, WIC card. The TWIC card, he could go work offshore, he could take care of his family, he could have a little house in Sunnyside, South Park, South Acres, right? He could put his baby through TSU, U of H, or send them to A&M when they start integrating Rice and all them other spots. But he can't do it now. Where's the blue collar path to the middle class anymore? It's been cut off. And they got us all fighting each other. So now you playing cops and robbers, man. And you are part of the problem. But also the problem is the district attorneys. Also the problem is the judges. Also the problem is the bail bonds situation. You know that a study came out that the cash bonds and letting out the low-level misdemeanor people did not increase crime. They weren't rearrested. They didn't reoffend. In spite of what little Joe Grimaldi of the police union and even our police chief has said. So it's the whole damn system is rotten from top to bottom. It is become an industry by locking us up in cages as they did in slavery and making money off of us and living a life off of our incarceration and our criminality and our pathologies. Look at this pandemic and how it's affected us. Why? Because we have underlying health conditions, brother and sister. You don't like the Muslims. You think all we talk about is you don't eat pork. Don't eat pork. No, it ain't just don't eat pork. Leave them damn shrimp alone too. Lobster and all them crabs and all them damn. Oh, I know I'm talking to Louisiana. I know they're going to think, man, Muhammad, you was doing well till you started in on our gumbo and all other stuff, crawfish and all that other stuff. Brothers and sisters, diabetes, heart attack, cancer, obesity, all those things is the underlying thing. When you look at them 185,000 people that died because of the coronavirus, it's because this opportunistic virus hits us when we're already vulnerable. Your immune system, diabetes lowers your immune system. So this virus takes you over. Please learn how to eat to live from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and change your diet and get better exercise and take care of yourself and leave the tobacco alone and the liquor alone and the illicit drugs and even the over-the-counter drugs. Leave that stuff alone, sister and brother. Learn how to eat to live. Practice a lifestyle and not a death style. Because we need you strong. And be careful of this daggone vaccine that they're rushing. Do you trust Trump and his people? I don't even trust the scientists because they're in bed with Big Pharma. What, Muhammad? Yeah, I don't trust them either. Why? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that the Caucasian, everything about him is commercialization. This is Labor Day weekend, right? Do you know any furniture store that's not having a Labor Day sale? It's Labor Day weekend sale. And then after that, there'd be Halloween. Then it'd be Thanksgiving. Then it'd be Black Friday. Then it'd be Christmas. Then there's New Year's sale. Then there's a President's Day sale. Then there's a Valentine's Day sale. Oh, I forgot. They don't do a lot of Martin Luther King Jr. sales in January. Okay. Then you go from there, March, April. Then there's the Easter sale. Then there's the Memorial Day sale, the 4th of July Day sale. Everything, Mother's Day, Father's Day. They pimp us 24/7, 365 in 1 quarter day. It's all about that money. So politics without economics is symbol without substance. Minister Farrakhan teaches us, sister and brother, if your politics do not guard your economics, then why the heck you voting for these people? I don't need no job. I need to have the ability to employ others. We had a job. We talk about job. I did more for African Americans than Abraham Lincoln, Mr. Trump says. Really? Yeah. Look at the lowest unemployment African Americans have had in years. That's a damn lie. We had 100% employment when we was on the plantation. I seen one meme that said they call black people lazy because now that we won't work for free. You know, these people have built a country. And one thing, you know something, brothers and sisters, this is what I want you to do. I want you to practice this. Minister Farrakhan has taught us this. Stop thinking about white people. And they literally will go away. Stop thinking about them. And what I mean by stop thinking about them, worry about what God thinks about you and what we think about each other in the context of God. When I look at Jerry with all of what he thinks is his faults, I look past his needs, as Minister Farrakhan has looked past my needs, or look past my faults, and he's seen my needs. He needs somebody that's strong enough to tell him, man, what the hell you doing? But at the same time, he trusts me because he know I love him, because I don't judge him. If we would do that for one another, imagine how far we would go. Perfect love casts out fear, brothers and sisters. Why don't we practice some of that turning the other cheek with one another? Why don't we practice some of that Dr. Martin Luther King stuff with one another? Why are you always practicing it with the people who are your open enemies? But you won't practice it with one another. Brother Gary, if Brother Jerry insults me, I'm through with that so-and-so. I'm through with it. I ain't never gonna do with him again. You go to a black business, they might have burnt your hamburger. I ain't never going back there again. Man, all these pieces that messed over you. And then come Tuesday, when you go back to work, the same boss that been screwing over you, that gave the white boy or the white girl a promotion, you know you should have got that promotion. You grumble, but you still there, ain't you? You still working at the plant, though, aren't you? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with us? So I just want to say to you, you see behind me, Message to the Black Man. If you don't have that book, if you got a library looks like mine and you don't have Message to the Black Man, your library is butt naked. Because that message is for us from God. 2, if you don't understand the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, now here's another one I might pulled on you, Dimitri. Closing the Gap. I got you. Closing the Gap. The interviews and the heart, mind, and soul of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. You don't understand that man and the context and the motive for what he does. If you allow your enemy to tell you who to listen to, who you should affiliate yourself with, then we're lost. That man has been faithful to us. He's unapologetically for us. And guess what? He has admirers all over this planet, including white people who follow him. And they know he's not anti-Semitic. They know he's not a misogynist. They know he's not homophobic. They know he's not a hater, a race hater. They know that. But they cannot tell you that he's a good man, just like they couldn't tell you Jesus was a good man in your midst. Because if they did, the whole world would follow behind him. If Grandmaster Jay has 1,000 armed brothers, imagine those nearly 2 million men that showed up on the mall. If Farrakhan would have told them other than go home, join an organization, join a spiritual house, go home, register to vote. Do you know that the New York Times bear witness that it was black men that pushed Clinton and got him in a second term? And it's because Minister Farrakhan told them to register to vote. See? So let's be clear, brothers and sisters, that Mr. Farrakhan, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said he could arm his people in 24 hours. And Mr. Farrakhan said he knows how to negotiate an arms deal if he needed to. So think again, brothers and sisters. No, we don't carry so much as a penknife. But once we get some of this land, some of this earth we can call our own, don't you think we're going to guard our borders? And don't you think we're going to have arms to do that? Don't you think we're going to guard our flag? Now, some don't stand for the flag. Some don't stand for the national anthem. I respect that. I respect what Colin Kaepernick did. But we're taught to stand for their anthem and to respect their flag. And the reason why we do is because when you come in our nation, you're going to respect our flag and you're going to respect our nation. White people are free and independent people. They stole America fair and square. They stole it from the Indians, and they stole us from Africa to build it. They stole America fair and square. So I understand these white people who have this mindset. I don't agree with them, but I understand them. I understand what's at the root of them. They cannot ever submit anything darker than themselves. I don't care what they say, we're all men are created equal. No, all men are not created equal. All men are created equally. Meaning we all come through the womb of that sacred womb of a woman, but we're not all created equally. We're not all created equal. Brother Jerry has certain qualities. Sister Demetria, you have certain qualities. I have certain qualities that nobody else on this planet has. There's never been anybody like you or me, and there never will be another one like us. We're unique. So no, we're not equal. There's some things Brother Jerry can do, I just can't do. Ain't no need of me trying to get out of my lane. And there's certain things, Sister Demetria, that you are born to do. Nobody else can do it better than you. And everybody that's watching and listening, there's somebody, you are somebody so unique that if you really will look in the mirror, it is as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, brother and sister, every time you're looking at the black man, you're looking at God. If you really understood what God is, not just who he is, what God is, then you would then those things would turn on inside of you. Don't you know, I go back to Black Panther, looking at Wakanda, oh, that's all fantasy. No, sister and brother, I got books over here, Chariots of the Gods, all that kind of stuff. These white people couldn't figure out how these civilizations, pyramids, and all of these civilizations existed before that so-called age of discovery. Every time they got there, they found us there, or somebody that looked like us, with stuff they couldn't explain, because they know they had just came out of the caves and hillsides. So they try to say, well, see, spacemen came down here. They flew down and they built these 8 wonders of the world, and it couldn't have been people that looked like you and me. And they trying to say that man evolved from an ape. Hell no. Man evolved from us. And we ain't apes. The apes evolved from us, not from us from the apes. Sorry about that. Who is the original man? You're looking at him. Me and you, sister. You're the first creation of God. The black woman's the first creation of God. There's nobody that teaches that but the Nation of Islam. You were his first act of creation. Not sun, not moon, not stars. The black woman. You were his first act of creation. So you're not the woman of man. You're the woman of God. Sisters, if you're listening, why don't you act accordingly? You're not JoJo, Ray Ray, Junebug's woman. You God's woman. Act like it. WAP, it got to mean something else than what, it got to mean something more than that. Because you more than that, sister. If that's how you get a man, you won't keep him with that. Because he'll find somebody else with the WAP. Trust me. You have about 3 or 4 babies for him, and you stop looking like you looked when you were 16, 17, 18 years old. If that's how you got him, somebody else will. Get him with that WAP. Come on, sis. Support conscious rappers. Support arts and culture that don't disrespect and denigrate the black woman. Look at what Master P did, at least the business model Master P did. I really admire that brother, what he did. You know, look at what's going on with the NBA, with the stars in the NBA, what's happening, the consciousness that's starting to rise in our athletes and our entertainers. We don't have gold mines. We don't have diamond mines. We don't have platinum mines, but we got these talented icons and celebrities that have worldwide following. They are our national treasures. Now they're waking up. So I'll close with that, And Brother Jerry, I'll give it to you and Sister Demetria, and we can close out at that point. I don't know. We done went an hour and a half, man. How you let me talk this long?
You going at it. You gotta. I want to put this up. As much as I dislike you, General, I'm trying to tell you to reject this man. It would be better for us to fight it out and keep this evil out. Don't say I didn't warn you. They are deceptive. Don't be stupid. I will never denounce Dr. Abdul Haleem Muhammad. I will never denounce Minister Louis Farrakhan. But what I am going to tell you is because of their teachings that I have put my hand on these black communities to keep these youngsters from tearing your fucking head off. You should be thankful. Because if I didn't do what I said I was going to do, it would be a bunch of dead Cajuns right now. So if you're waiting for me to denounce Louis Farrakhan, I want to make you understand something. I'm not Nick Cannon. I'm not none of them celebrities. Nobody from my church, when I was in the hospital for 23 days, after giving $12,000 a month in tithes, ever came to visit me. Dr. Abdul Haleem Muhammad came to visit me. I am loyal. You now have a problem because they're gonna keep teaching me. So if you don't want to do business with me, don't do it. If you don't want to be my friend, don't be it. Because when I was damn near dead, the nation was the only one that showed up. Be thankful that they're talking to me because I don't have to throw one brick. I can get in my car and go home and let these youngsters tear y'all asses up down here. So by the time the National Guard come, it won't be nothing for them to come for. Be careful what you wish for. That he been talking all night. Be careful what you wish for, man. That's my final words, Dimitri. You got it.
I'll say it again. Stop thinking about them and they go away. Who really cares what he thinks? What I care about is what God thinks. And what I want to explain to your good friend is this. It took 1,000 years for to say all roads led to Rome. It took 500 years for it to say that the sun never set on the British Empire. Yet America has come up on this continent and been the greatest military, economic, cultural superpower on the planet in less than 250 years. If Rome declined and fell, and if the British Empire is just a shadow of the empire it once was, isn't it the hand of providence that determined that? You say you believe in God, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, yet you deny the very people that you say are supposed to have liberty and justice for all. Can I get one more receipt for this Caucasian? But I'm really doing this for black people because I really stopped thinking about them long ago. One more receipt.
And Gary, only we can see his comment anyway.
So what I want to read is the debates. Part of the debates took place during the Constitutional Convention. Now, no black people was there unless we were serving fried chicken and lemonade. We weren't there. But you had, this is the irony of it. You had there, you ever heard of George Mason? You heard George Mason University, right? Okay, so George Mason, believe it or not, was a man that influenced Thomas Jefferson in some of his writings, particularly in liberties in Virginia. The irony of it is that George Mason was one of these men who actually came and sat through the whole Constitutional Convention. There are 40 signatures on the Constitution. Actually, 39 people signed it. See? The problem with these Caucasians is that they've been dumbed down. The dumbing down of America, they don't even teach civics anymore. They don't teach civics anymore. The high school teachers I had, they made me learn civics. So these people, they're just dumb. They're brainwashed. It ain't even patriotism. It's brainwashing. They ain't even taught to think. So I want to give it to them like this. Reject your own. Don't reject me. I'm just pointing out, I'm just a witness bearer. But here's what George Mason said. They were making a compromise, Sister Dimitri. The second compromise during the Constitutional Convention that had to do with us, the importation of slaves in this case. And the New England states didn't want imports taxed. At the same time, the New England states wanted importation of slaves to stop. So the compromise was, guess what? We won't tax the imports if you won't stop it or at least let it go on for the next 20 years. So slave trading was allowed to go on at least another 20 years where they were importing slaves. But in this debate, George Mason, who ironically was the largest slave owner of slaves at the Constitutional Convention, do you know that when they decided that this was the Constitution, he refused it. He fought against ratification of it. But listen what he said in the debates. This is the Anti-Federalist Papers. He says, every master of slaves is born a petty tyrant. They bring the judgment of heaven on a country. As nations cannot be rewarded or punished in the next world, they must be in this. By an inevitable chain of causes and effects, Providence punishes national sins with national calamities. If slavery is America's original sin, and you still, after all of this time, have not rectified it, I didn't just say it was the Southerners. I said it was the Northerners and the Southerners. England benefited. Europe benefited. Everybody benefited that comes to America benefits from our free labor and Indian stolen land, and even poor white people's labor and ignorance today. National sin beget national calamities. You have a country that is nearly $50 trillion in debt. You can never pay that back. You have crumbling infrastructure. You have a pandemic that's killed over 185,000 Americans. Over 6 million are infected. You have an economy that is imploding. I don't care what the unemployment numbers say. You have school systems that are shut down. You have the greatest universities in this country. They can't even go to school. And when they go to school, try to open up the school, they have to shut them down because the infection rates are spreading. University of Alabama, you name all of them, the great universities. What's going on, America? Why are we being hit with so many national calamities, natural calamities? What are these hurricanes? What is this drought? What is 120 degrees in Los Angeles? Are you kidding me? Los Angeles got average 75 degrees all year long. 120 degrees in Los Angeles? Are you so blind, my friend, that you don't see that the hand of God is now fighting against you? And as the play said, your arms are too short to box with God. You can have all of the preparations you're making for a race war you want to, my friend. You can have all the guns and bombs that you bought, all the ammunition that you have. All of that will do you no good when the flood waters come, when the tornadoes come, when the pestilence comes, when the drought comes. God will see these people free, not because of the color of their skin, but because of the content of our character. Because in spite of everything that you all have done to us, there's still in us, even the most angriest of us, there's still of that wants this thing to work the way you said it's supposed to work. But don't listen to this man. You got to reject this man. Let's just fight it out and kill each other, but don't listen to him. How stupid is that? All I did was quote or bring to the witness stand everybody that bore witness to what my divine leader, teacher, and God has taught. I brought your scholars, your writers, telling you that if we do not change, you have this window of opportunity, America. The only nation, the only city that was ever saved that listened to his prophet was Nineveh. Jonah came, and it's because the king of Nineveh put on sackcloth and ashes and led the atonement. Nineveh was spared. I don't see Mr. Trump putting on sackcloth and ashes. I don't see him atoning for what this nation has done. Therefore, know that the fate of the sister nations before you will be your fate. Change. Make peace with the people of God and be one of the people of God. Renounce Satan and all his works. Renounce the works of your fathers. That's what will make America great. Not again. It will make it great and extend its time. And it will be that bright, shining city on a hill. But if not, it will be the dunghill of the human race. And people will look from afar and say, look at what once was a great nation. Look what happened to it. God's hand now is being stayed because of you and I, brother and sister. God has spared America just long enough for you and I to wake up. We have no excuse today. Social media, television, radio, everything lets us know that at our fingertips, we can go to the Library of Congress. We can visit the archives of the Vatican. You can learn anything in an instant. You don't even have to listen to me. Everything I said, you can Google and fact check. Every book I quoted, you can find on Amazon. So if you didn't find any falsehood in what I said, you may not agree with how I said it. But if you can't find any lies in what I said, then know that what I'm lining up for you is two roads. Choose life or death. Choose the way of God or choose the way of Satan. Satan's on his way out. And he tends to take as many of us with him as possible. So wake up, America. And as I said, black people, stop thinking about what they care about. Think about what God cares about, because they're not God. Think about what God cares about, what's right in his eyes. And treat others as you would have them treat you. Want for your brother and sister what you want for yourself. And then guess what? That's the way that we need to live our lives. Love ye one another. Jesus taught to obey the commandments, to love God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, your strength. And he said, love thy neighbor as thyself. But brother and sister, if we don't love ourselves, we're not qualified to love our white neighbor. Learn how to love yourself. Make your own neighborhood a decent and honorable place and safe place to live. Clean up your own neighborhood. Don't sit around here waiting for them to clean up. How are you going to condemn them on one hand and then turn around and ask them to help you on the other? Get up and do for yourself. You get $1.5 trillion out this economy. You ain't got to sit around here begging nobody for nothing. Pool your resources. Open up your own businesses. China will sell to you just like they sell to Walmart. We got brilliant people that produce stuff, man. Many entrepreneurs, restaurateurs, and others, inventors that will do stuff. And set up trading posts in your own community. Set up your own dollar store. You don't have to sit around here begging nobody for nothing. And if they want peace, give them peace. If they don't, they can let them deal with God because he got something for their backside. You know, what they have planned for us, brother, what they have planned for us, you should let what the Heinrich Himmler of the SS of Nazi Germany be your bellwether, your canary in the coal mine, brother. They put people in concentration camps, and you don't think that will happen to us. Look what happened to the people across the border. These people in concentration camps, man. Don't you think they'll do that to us? They already did it to them. They don't give a damn about us. So I stopped thinking about them. I want what God wants. And if what they want lines up with what God wants, we're going to get along just fine. If not, I just encourage you, brother, to keep on keeping on. And remember that in the end, they want their way and not our way. It's got to be their way or the highway. It can't be our way. But I got news for them. It's going to be God's way. That's the way I want. So may Allah bless each and every one of you who are listening and watching with the light of his understanding. And know that in the role of the prophet and the prophetic voice, my job is only to deliver a clear message. And at that point, it's on you. So what you do is on you. And don't say that you weren't warned about what God has in store for you. And to my people, clean up or you're out of luck with God. God cannot back unrighteousness, and he won't back unrighteousness. Take care of your children. Take care of your community. Take care of your elders. Stand up for your women. Don't denigrate them. Don't misuse them. Don't abuse them. And treat our women like they treated their women. Do you know that if you looked at a white woman, they would kill you? Well, my grandma said, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Honor, respect, and protect your woman. And if you do that, you get a whole nother level of respect for you. So thank you so much. And may Allah bless you. Brother Jerry, you want to say something before I go? Or, you look like you had your hand raised.
No, I'm listening to you because those that know me know I normally sit at 10. But those that really know me know when I stop talking, we got problems. I'm done talking. I love you, my brother, as usual. You've enlightened us. I learn so much every time you show up. But the one thing that I think the United States of America, with the way that I travel, should be so happy that you've taught me is patience. It's patience. And I teach that patience to our brothers around the country and our sisters around the country. But my mama always told me to say, when a man stops talking, you may be at your most dangerous point. Keep talking to me, my friend. You know we'll talk tomorrow, the next day, the next day. Keep talking to me.
Well, brother.
I know. See, the thing is you know, I know, Demetri knows. Those that think they have total control of these situations don't have a clue. Lafayette, Louisiana is a fraction of the size of Minneapolis. But they crippled Minneapolis. Even when they brought the National Guard in, they paralyzed Minneapolis. You ain't built. Like you said earlier, you're not built for that smoke, man. You think you are, but you're not built for that smoke, man. So thank you. You know you're always invited back anytime. And Demetri, you get to close it out.
As I always say, when wisdom speaks, I listen and I take a copious amount of notes, and I'm going to be investing in these books because I also want to know more. But I agree with you so much, Dr. Muhammad, in that why do we care what they think? It's a distraction at this point, and we have gotten so busy as Black people and taking so much time to weigh ourselves on how they, I won't say who they are, but they know who they are, and how they think about us. Who cares? Who cares? And so for you guys on here, I hope you guys got a lot of wisdom and knowledge, and you also took notes, because these are the things that we need to know so that we can move the ball forward. But like you said, there is no politics without economics. And so we need to work on unifying and practicing group economics and all of that so that we can come out of this better than we are now. And so that's all we got, guys. So we'll be back here Monday at 7 o'clock Central Time. So you guys stay cool. I know that I will out here in Southern California. You guys have a blessed evening.